able to welcome you to this particular community business mapping webinar because we've got MapPoint 5.0, which was released this week, with the capability to do advanced territory mapping. And this level of mapping is something we've been kind of eyeing features for the last few years, especially as MapPoint has exited the field. It's left a hole that I think a company like Map Business Online is just really excited to be able to step into and provide the features that might have been available before. So I'd like to officially welcome everybody to this particular Map Business Online community webinar. We're going to talk about advanced territory mapping. The release was put out today, this week. And the first thing I'm going to do is let's just take a step back and look at the map that I've got up on our Map Business Online palette here this morning. And you can see in the western section of the country, I've got territories. In the eastern section of the country, I have regions above the territories. And then over those regions, I've created an eastern division. So essentially, what we've done in Map Business Online 5.0 is we have added the ability to have hierarchical layers of territories, regions, and divisions. Those names are all going to be editable. We'll look at how we can do that. And we're going to go into how these layers are manufactured from zip codes, counties, states, whatever layer you start with in your world. But the first advanced territory mapping feature that I really wanted to make sure people were aware of is actually something that's already been in Map Business Online, and that is the ability to fill in national park, wildland areas, places that are non-zip codes. So I've already done that on my map, but I wanted to show just quickly how that's done. And the first thing you would do if you're worried about the fill of those empty zip codes is show you what it looks like. So when you have a map, and I'm giving you a shared map view of another map that I've got in my folder, without fill, all these open areas that have no zip codes, and they show as just whatever your background zip code color is. And a lot of people, they can be annoyed by it or they can be just distracted by it, but they like to have that all filled in. And you can see how that does look kind of nicely over here. So what you would do is click that little edit gear in Map and Data, go to the zip codes, and down at the bottom, choose zip code with fillers. So USPS zip codes with fillers will allow you to fill in. That is not retroactive. It is moving forward on maps moving forward. So it wouldn't fix old ones. And if I hover over one of the zip codes that's a national park, you'll see it's 823MX. So we've assigned sort of our own internal number that lets you view that number at actual information. And the way I'm going to solve it is the same way we would build a territory manually, is I'm going to go up here and just run my polygon. I've selected my polygon search tool, and I'm simply going to run through and quickly, hopefully I won't mess this up too badly as I'm trying to move this forward and not be slow. Clearly I have kind of, let me try that again. I'm going to go up here and grab this. When you go outside of the state and you don't have any other states there, it's kind of easy to apologize for my little clumsiness. And so we would take this polygon and stretch it across all of these unfilled zips, and then we would simply click that binocular, choose the zip code layer, and update or add to that particular territory, which in this case is Idaho, and that gets rid of those empty holes and gives us a much more a prettier sort of view. And you could do it also by selecting and holding down the shift key. So if I did that over here, I can get a whole bunch of those empty non-zip code areas at once, and then click add to, and I believe that's Montana and Wyoming. So those are the zip code fillers that's been in Map Business Online, and now you see how to do it. I've left a couple there for you to see. And now let's move to how we might create hierarchical territory layers. So in the previous version of Map Business Online, you would create your territory layer out of zip codes, counties, states, and other additional layers that are up here in the Add Map Layers button. And you would create your territories. And in my case, I have imported a list of zip codes to create my territories that you see on the map. So there's my zip code layer and my territory name. That's all I needed. I imported that list and created my territory layer. And for now, I'm just going to turn on region and division, and we'll just look at the territory layer. I won't go into importing territories in this particular webinar. We've done this on a whole bunch of demos that are available on the YouTube site. And we could go into actually how you might build a territory from scratch, because it actually helps me show you a new feature right off the bat. So let's take Idaho, Oregon, and Washington, and you can see, unlike before, when you had territories, you couldn't just select them like that and get this little menu. That was only available on our typical map layers, states, counties, and zip codes. Well, that's now available on the territory layer, region layer, or division layer. You can select your area, and then you'll have the option to go in and edit. You'll be able to do some searches on that territory. So if you've got data you want to search on that territory, that's there. This is really cool because it's a summarize button. So you're able to quickly make a spreadsheet, bring some demographic data over, bring in calculated data columns, bring in data that you've imported over here, and then create a quick spreadsheet that you can export out of the application. So that's pretty cool. There's a zoom tool, and there's the ability to go in and edit your labels and your color. So I could change my color to orange if I wanted to for this particular situation. And I could also delete my territory just like that. So again, in Map Business Online, you can create your territories from a search tool just like we did a few minutes ago. So if I went in and recreated my territory, and I'm going to do it quickly so I'll miss a few zips, but that gives me the ability to query the zip code layer and create my territories. So we'll call that Washington. And in my case, I created my territory layers here from import. Now let's go into that map and data function. So in map and data, you have the ability to go in and hang over any of these layers and edit those layers. So if we hold our mouse over the territory layer and click the edit gear, we've got some new functionality in here that it's really, really important for you to understand. So one of the things you can see we've got in territories are a boundary section, which we did not have before. So we've now added a boundary section with the ability to change the color, which would be pretty standard. And that gives you the ability to create a boundary all around your territory. You can change your fill. You could actually uncheck the fill, and that would give you just that boundary as a background layer without any fill. Now that wasn't available before, so it's in there now. You've got that control over the boundaries. And in this case, you can see I've got my zip code layer still turned on. Well, I'm done working with it, so I can turn that off. And you can look at the map and see I've got a little bit of transparency through this. Well, in fact, that transparency function is controlled right here, where I can move my transparency scroll bar all the way to the right and just have a hint of color in there across my boundaries. and see all of that map information behind there. And then gradually I could bring that color back till I get all the way to opaque and just be looking at my color of the actual territories that I've created. And that's pretty cool. That's been requested, and so we've put that in the application. You've got those three controls. You can hide the internal boundaries. That, if I uncheck it, would bring the zip codes back into view. Boundary now would cover all the zip code boundaries as well. So that can be something that in some instances you may want to have that information, maybe to study some of the makeup of your territories. And in this case, I'm going to hide it because I think it makes for a much cleaner view. Now, yesterday, and I keep finding new functionality available in Map Business Online 5.0 every day, but yesterday, big shout out to Yoshiko from Fuji Electric, because we talked to her a little bit about still seeing her state boundaries behind or on top of the territory. So I've checked on my state boundaries here, and I just want to move that up so that I can see the state boundaries on top of my territory boundaries. And in this case, now you can see these were one whole territory, and now they've got a state boundary in the middle. So there's some functionality now that wasn't in there before that allows a lot of different views of your territories. So be sure to play with these tools and see what best fits your particular territory scheme. Back into editing that territory view, we're going to look at the color code options. Just really quickly, there's a button there that lets you open up the color coding feature, and it's being applied to your territories. So now you're able to take a data layer like demographic data, and let's just use population as an example. I'm going to let Map Business Online choose the range, although we do have up to 100 ranges, and assign the population breakdown based on an algorithm. And we'll just, let's go with sort of shades of blue. So now all of my territories are reflecting population, and they're color-coded based on that population. That's an option for you. So we can clear that and return to our previous scheme. Going back into that button, if you'd imported your own data and you had some level of information that you wanted to color code based on, then you could choose that information, choose that column of information in your data. So maybe it's sales totals, and you can go in and decide how that's going to break down and then color code accordingly. So it gives you a whole bunch of, let's just do a quick example here. So let's say you wanted only sales starting at 2,500, 25,000, and we'll go up from there. And it gives you a way to color code based on your own information. Again, click done, and there's my data. I've got sales in the Northeast in this particular data set. And then again, I can clear it and go back to what I had before. Lots of flexibility there. It would include calculated data columns, which we did a webinar on last time. And then if we go down, continuing down our little filter layer on top shows. You've got the manage calculated data columns, which is already in there. And let's go over to labels here. So formatting labels is another area that we had some requests to change the way we had label capabilities in Map Business Online for territories. So now we've added a full 5 fields that you can pull from and bring data in from information that you might have imported or from our included demographic information. And I'll put 3 layers on here. We've got a calculated data column that you can actually pull from. And so I'll put, those are older Americans, so I'll just put folks. And then you can change the labels in the territory, and you've got that information now as reference for whatever it is that you might need to share with your constituents. So labels are adjustable here. You've got small fonts, large fonts, some controls over fonts and the way things look from a color perspective. You can turn labels, all of them off or all of them on. And that can be convenient if you just want to look at sort of your whole breakdown from a color perspective, talk about your territories in general, or you want to turn all your labels on. So it's up to you how you want to customize your map and get information the way you feel it should be. And so then I'm going to go back and I'm just going to pull out my labels for this particular exercise. I'm checking my list to make sure that we're giving you the highlights here. Okay, so that's the naming flexibility. And then down here, we still have our intersection. So I've allowed territories to intersect, and I've highlighted those intersections in black. So that should give you a sense of where your overlap is. So if you've got overlap, you can define where that's going to be highlighted in Map Business Online. Okay. So if we go back and look at regions and divisions, we want to think about how we build a region and a division. So I'll turn off the division. Let's just look at the region layer. Each of these layers, division, region, and territories, have the same functionality that we just went over in the territory layer. So if I click the edit gear and I go up to general, there's my boundary for my regions here in yellow. I've selected yellow because I want it to be bright and differentiated from my territory boundaries. I can take my regions and make them transparent. And you'll see that the thick can see through my regions and all the territories in the background, but I've still got my boundary showing. Now you can play with this to the extent that you may want to have a mix. Maybe there's some level of, sort of overlapping show with some color coming through. Because you can see over here, I don't have any regions built yet. So maybe you want to show where your regions exist, where they don't exist, where the territories do. So there's flexibility for you to go in and adjust those region controls and territory controls and division controls to see different aspects of where your territories and regions and divisions lay. Again, you can go in and color code just like we did before. So your regions could be color coded by demography, your territory could be color coded by sales, and your divisions by some other function. So that gives you a lot of functionality for managing how your regions look and feel. But how do you build one? So when we want to build a region out of territories, you can select them manually, or you can select them using a polygon or even a circle tool. So for instance, I could select a polygon tool, and let's create a region called, let's go in here and just pick those territories right there. And I'm selecting territories to build my regions, as opposed to selecting zip codes or states or counties. I'm using the territory to build on my hierarchy and create regions. So I select territory and I name it, and we'll call it Greater West, Upper, whatever you want to call it. And you'll see you've got a notes area right here too, so you can write what you want in your reference, which might be valuable for you in terms of understanding why you built a particular region in a particular way. When you're done with the polygon, you can just get rid of it. And you'll note we've got labels here, so we can go in with our edit gear and adjust labels as we see fit. So you've got that same flexibility you did in territories now in regions for creating a label with some level of referential information. I've got sales data in here from before. So we looked at my formatting the label. There it is. That's data that I've imported before, and I've grabbed revenue from that and put that into my regions. And you can see my data here in map and data. So I've got Loretta's data there, information that I've brought in before. It's mostly populated in the Northeast. That's why I don't have any dollar value here. So let's build another region. You could select a territory, hold down the Shift key, walk through your territories, and then I'm going to create a new region. We'll call that Far West Region, and then we create that. So now if I look at my map, I should have, let's just take the tool for color coding and let's go opaque. And you can see all of my regions are covered here in the continental US. So I've got my regions built. Now, out of those regions, and you might, one thing I would do right off the bat is I would change my color on that Western region. I'm going to go in and make that sort of a blue. So you could immediately think about divisions. Divisions are handled the same way regions are. And in this case, we're going to, we've already got a division that's built on the East Coast. I have my internal fill is pretty much transparent, it's 80%. So that black boundary is kind of heavy to give me a good boundary all the way around it. And I'm going to build my far west filled. I'll select that. And then I'm going to hold down the Shift key and select my next territory. Yeah, that's what I want to do. And I'm going to make this my Western division. Create. So now we have two regions, two divisions, and they're all created here based on that black boundary. And you can see I've got my fillers that I didn't catch that are showing up there. Another reason to get the fill selected and finalized before you start in with a new map. So now we've got divisions and regions, and my divisions and regions I can adjust to be more or less transparent. The thing I love about the way Map Business Online works now is that you've got the ability to adjust the way these look so that you can set up a map that has sort of a nice color scheme in the background for territories. It's got a defined region area by yellow, and you can see some of the overall shades are starting to come in, defining regions, and then the divisions are showing with the dark black boundary. And so now you've got a hierarchy of territories available for viewing in a way that I think makes it pretty intuitive for the viewer to understand your structure. And you'll want to take some time and think about your company structure and how you base your territories, whether it's a sales territory organization or some sort of other coverage ranking or hierarchy, so that you think about, what's the basis unit. The zip code is very common, but it could be counties, it could be states. Zip code, it could be census tracts, city limits, metropolitan statistical areas, or a census-based sort of marketing area that we've got in the product. We've even got school districts if you're into education, and 3-digit zip codes. So there's a variety of base map layers to start with, and then build your regions, territories, and divisions. And in your company, division may not be what you call it. And so we've thought about that. And so you can go into your division layer here, and you can change the division name. You could call it zone. And then that's going to just change that layer. And then if I wanted to take that to its final adjustment here, I might go into the actual label and change that from Eastern Division to zone. Save the edit. And you can change that on region, and you can change that on territory. So you've got the ability to change exactly what we call these structures so that it matches your particular world. So in the automotive industry, dealership might be a great way to adjust your particular scheme so that it reflects what's the most important basic structure of your business. Whatever you call it, that's what you can name it. So you've got that little editing tool, and that shows up in several places. Now, if we go back to the Map and Data tab, I'll just close it and open it. So you can see we've added a button here for the data window. You can open the data window right from Map and Data. So that gives a little bit more connectivity. Our typical data window button is right here. Because now in the data window, when you used to build territories, you would see your zip code layer with all of the territories listed below. But now we have a territory layer, and all of those zip codes are listed, which means you can immediately export that out as a list of zip codes, or excuse me, as a list of territories that represent your company. You can click more data down below, and you can add, for instance, regions, and you can add any of the information you've imported, and you can add from our demographic data as well. So you can create now quickly some sort of a territory spreadsheet that pertains to your particular business and export that out as a spreadsheet to use outside of the application. There's little arrows here that let you kind of zoom back out to the region level, back in to the zone and territory levels. So you've got like a little control here. And if we go back to, let's go back to territory level. Let's say we want to go in and look at Mississippi. So we can go in with that arrow and see everything that we've got there for our territories and go in and adjust accordingly like we always have been able to do. So you can move stuff out using your little database management tool and then move information back in as it's important to you and your particular needs. So you've got that ability. That little arrow is just a helpful tool to move back and forth within the regions, the divisions, and the zip codes, excuse me, and the territories. This is the Manage Territory button. And I wanted to point out that we've put in some flexibility here too. So you could decide whether or not you want to view all of my regions, my divisions, and my territories at once and adjust names or do some deleting. Or you can just go in and just look at just the zones, just the divisions. It's up to you. It's a little bit more flexibility so that you're not overwhelmed with everything all at once. You can control some of the features that you see and just work with those tools at that level. I'm just checking my notes again. Okay, we looked at that. We looked at managed territories. Now, in Map Business Online 5.0, we've also added some functionality with regard to data management and data searching and data views. So here I've got an imported data layer, 7,000 records across the map. I'm going to just get out of my zones and dealerships for now. And we're going to look just at territories here. So we looked at a territory selection, and we saw that you can go in and actually query the territory. So you could query this data layer perspective and look at all of the records within that territory. So we'll say prospect layer for Montana. And we create that data set, just like we always have done in Map Business Online. And you can see I've got 98 prospects out of 7,000 in that Montana territory area. But if we go back and look at that one more time, and we're going to pick prospective data again, you'll notice we've added an invert complement checkbox here. Inversion or reverse spatial search is what we've put in there now. So let's just say inverted Montana prospect. So now, when we look at that data, you'll see it's a lot more data. It's 6,957. And that's because it's querying everything outside of Montana. So if I go back to that data view and I click filter data on the map, everything but Montana is included. That's pretty cool. So you can find everything in this geographic object and everything outside of that geographic object. And that's what inversion is about. That functionality is also going to be available from like, let's say, a radius search or polygon search or a drive time search. So if I did a search here of my prospective data, it's the same sort of thing. So we'll say radius prospect inside. And there's my list. I'm going to uncheck filter data on the map here. So there's my list here. It's got all that, 85 records, which I can export. And if I go back and hit that, query that same data set, and this time we'll do the inversion radius prospect out, just to give you a sense of it. And of course, checking that filter data on the map. Now we show the outside records. Inside, outside. Now, we found out yesterday we can even take our map analysis tab up here, market analysis tab up here, and we can do multiple radiuses up to 200. So you can do an analysis of multiple radiuses at one time, inside and out. And I'm going to do a separate video on that because that's a little more involved, and we want to do a full process on that. So that'll be coming in our YouTube sections shortly. And you'll notice that I am clicking that filter data on the map button here to show where information is and isn't based on the query. And that is something that is now available here. So you've got a filter data on the map button there as well. So another way for you to kind of look at data and work with data results from map and data. Looking further at the data window and imported data, another function that we added, so we've got a list of prospects that I've imported into the map, that's 7,000, and I'm able to quickly take that data set, an imported data set, and now when I click more data on the map, my little database management tool, and I open it up, I've got the ability to add my territory, region, or division right into that database. And this is new. So before, you weren't able to easily get to that match of territory name to your data. But now you'll notice, if we go over here to the right with my scroll bar, we've got territories listed here. So all of my data is now associated with, and I'm going to also look at territory count, because this was kind of cool. And if I query territory count, let's go back to the top. There we go. I've got 2 because I put a duplicate territory on the map. If I can show you that just briefly here. I duplicated here deliberately to have two territories, one on Colorado and one called duplicate territory. So in that particular area, I've got two territories, and the count will tell us two. And then I can click that little three dots to show what those two territories are. That's new. In fact, that we just discovered this morning as kind of enhanced functionality. So that was pretty exciting. If we go back and we want to query based on territories, I can select my data. So let's say we select the res data this time. Click my territory button to query my data set, all this data that I've imported, and I'm going to query it based on territory. And I have options. The one I just showed you was search data inside all territories. And show territory assignments, but we can choose to search data inside of territories. So if I go in and say I want to look at all of the data, and I know it's in New England, so I'm going to go up and look at Northern New England. I want to look at Northern New England, and then let's see if I can go down and find Southern New England. So I've selected two. I can do more than one territory at a time. So I can group my territory searches, click next, name that data. So we'll call it New England North, New England South. And then we've got another data set that reflects two different areas on the map. So my Loretta's data, I'm going to turn it on here. And then I'm going to filter the data on the map. My New England North and my New England South. So more flexibility, being able to search your data for by territory and do both and group multiple territories at a time. If I go back and look at Loretta's data again, and I want to query by territory, I can search outside of that data, the territory. So I can click that option, click next, and I guess I don't have any data no data found outside of territory. So, okay, I'm going to go back and grab perspective. So I've got more data to work with. I'm going to click my territory button, that yellow puzzle piece. I'm going to search data outside of that area. Let me just back. Search data outside of any territory and save the results in the marketing list. So, okay, I think I'm getting over my head here. So look at that. So you can add that data to data that you've already created. So we've got an option to do a query and add that to one of our data sets. So we're merging data sets. And then, of course, you can export that data out. A lot of functionality here. A lot of it's brand new to me. So we're still learning it as we go. And it's been fun to work with. So we've talked about inverse spatial search. In the Map and Data tab, there's also a little button here called Edit Search Options. You can go into the Edit Search Options and decide if you're searching a radius search, some sort of spatial search using your defined search areas or draw tools. You can decide whether you want the data that you search to intersect at all, so be able to overlap, intersect at 50%, or just remain fully inside that circle. This eliminates some of the, sometimes you'd have, if you were searching zip codes, you'd have some overlapping zips. So you can decide, I only want to see zip codes that are fully inside that radius. So we set that option. We turn on our zip code layer. And for this, I'm going to turn off the territories. And then I click my radius search. I'm going to click my search button here. I'm going to search zip codes. And I'm going to create a new list inside. And because I selected that particular view, I'm only getting those zip codes that are inside that area. You can see there's a little bit of, let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see. Typically in Map Business Online, you would have received all of the zip codes where there was overlap. But now you've got a choice. You can pick whether you want the ones that are just inside, the ones that overlap 50%, or the ones that actually just overlap and intersect and you don't really care how accurate it is. So that's another function, again, that's here. Edit search options, fully inside, intersect at 50, or just intersect. So play with that and see how that might help what you do. So I've still got my territories turned on. I'm going to go back to that look. And let's just turn on the zones and the dealerships that we created. Map Business Online now gives you a lot of flexibility between labeling, boundaries, the way you can color code and set transparencies on your particular sort of assessment of your business. That means you've got control. It's a lot of control where you can turn a lot of things off and on. You can label things in different ways. You can put a variety of geographic objects on the map and work with your map to reflect your business. Come to us with questions. Come to us with more suggestions on how we can further expand Map Business Online. We're always interested in what people think and how they might feel Map Business Online could better reflect their particular business. I'm going to glance at some questions here. Hierarchy features of users. Everybody would have these hierarchy features available to them, not just developers. So this is what you've seen today is available to everybody. I can share the spreadsheet, I guess. If you guys would like to try and use that spreadsheet, I can share that. I can see there's some people interested in that, so I'll try and share that. You could have shared territories. Somebody's asking, are there more features with regard to shared territory? It's been the ability to have overlap. So like that Colorado overlap that I created. Overlap is a difficult thing because it changes from company to different companies feel differently about overlap. So if you've got overlapping territories, that's sort of a cultural thing that you'll want to consider and decide how you want to handle overlapping territories. So give that some thought. Certainly come back to us with specific questions. And you can certainly create sales territories via a county versus a zip code. I used zip codes in this particular webinar because I just felt zip codes are most common, but there's nothing to stop anybody from building zones on counties. So let's just turn on that county layer. And you would just go through the same process. You can either import your created territories, or you can create your territories using just a regular search tool like that, and you're going to just grab the counties as opposed to the zip codes. Same exact process. And then you would build your structure from your final map of counties, however big it was, and then make your regions and everything comply with that. So that's how I would do it. So there's my county layer here, and then that territory is going to go into the overall territory list as a county territory. So consider that. That's why it's going away when I turn off the territory layer. Canada would be applicable. All of this would be applicable to Canada as well. Canada is a separate subscription. So, if we just turned on our Canada map when I started a new map, all of the provinces and zip areas and counties in Canada would have been applicable as well. I think that's all the questions I see of U.S. Somebody's asking about the non-zip, so they might have come in late and not seen the filler example at the beginning, and so I'll be circulating the webinar link, and people will be able to see that part that showed the filler. So if you have questions, somebody's asking where they can email questions to sales@mapbusinessonline.com. Go to the website, hit the Contact Us button. This is the quickest way to get questions answered. All right, so that's all the time I think we have for today. I will circulate the webinar. We appreciate your feedback. We appreciate your support. And please give us whatever feedback you'd like. We're always interested in how we can improve the product. Go to mapbusinessonline.com and enjoy mapping with MBO 5.0. Thank you.